everybody, and welcome to what might become a series where I analyze HoYoverse's Genshin Impact's characters and the Western demons that they're named after to see if the two correlate at all. We're gonna start with character Paimon, for she is very, very prominent inside the game and is named after a major demon. If you want to see your favorite spirit or character analyzed to see if it has any kind of spiritual connections, please leave a comment down below and I am gonna look into them. Fair warning, I am not an expert on Genshin Impact. I do know a few things about Western mythology though, for I deal in occult, and while I am Luciferian, I have had experiences with Paimon before, so, you know, I'm as good as any other person to make this video in particular. To begin with, HoYoverse's Genshin Impact's, HoYoverse is the company, Genshin Impact's the game, Paimon. The game begins with your character waking up, and they have amnesia. They fish out this little chibi fairy, and this little chibi fairy tags along with you from that point on. Little chibi fairy considers themselves your protector. They will often talk for you, they will defend you. She has more lines than your own character does. She works as a game mechanism that stops you from going out of bounds by going, let's explore this area later, and then turning your character around and running it into a different direction. She obviously has something to do with time, considering that the pause menu is named after her, and it pauses everything but Paimon, or it is Paimon's pause menu, so that makes sense. Developer mail is sent through a system that is titled Paimon, except in all capitals with a dot after every single letter. This could relate to this character, or it could be a separate Paimon altogether. And furthermore, there is a running theory that because of all the powers that Paimon has, she can control your character. She has a pause menu named after her and apparently stops time. She could actually be a major goddess of the world that just got chibified and has amnesia, for that plot has been used for a different character down in this game, so people have their suspicions that this little Paimon is actually probably a pretty big deal. But how does this little fairy Paimon correlate with the demonic king Paimon? Well, let me just read the description of demonic king Paimon. We're gonna see if there's any similarities there at all. And then later on, we're gonna talk with a guest person who has wrote quite a few books on Paimon and has expertise in Paimon, to see if there's any kind of correlation between, once again, Genshin Impact's Paimon, that is a little cute fairy, and like this Demon King Paimon, which the little fairy borrows their name from. So let's start by reading about the big Paimon, the Demon King Paimon. Let's go. When it comes to Goetic Demon King Paimon is a solar spirit, for kings in the system of Lesser and Greater Key of Solomon seem to have been correlated to the sun in particular, and the whole rank system is kind of just there to give you a hint as to what kind of astrological correspondences you should seek for when you're doing your rituals and invocations or evocations. So all that is associated with the sun would be associated with the demons of the king rank, which would allow you to know what their metal is, what kind of herbs to use, and similar things. Let me just read you the description from Lesser Key of Solomon. A great king, and very obedient to Lucifer. He appeareth in the form of a man sitting upon a dromedary, with a crown most glorious upon his head. There goeth before him also a host of spirits, like men with trumpets and well-sounding cymbals, and all other sorts of musical instruments. He hath a great voice, and roareth at his first coming, and his speech is such that the magician cannot well understand unless he can compel him. This spirit can teach all arts and sciences and other secret things. He can discover under thee what the earth is, and what holdeth it up in the waters, and what mind is, and where it is, or any other thing that you mayst desire to know. He giveth dignity, and confirmeth the same. He bringeth or maketh any man subject unto the magician, if he so desire it. He giveth good familiars, and such as can teach all arts. He is to be observed towards the west. He is of the order of dominations. He hath under him 200 legions of spirits, and part of them are of the order of angels, and the other part of Pochenlats. I'm sorry, I don't know how some ancient words are pronounced. I don't know what Potenlates are. Now, if thou calleth this spirit Paimon alone, thou must make him some offering, and there will attend him 2 kings called Lebal and Abalim, and also other spirits who be of the order of Potenlats in his host, and 25 legions. And those spirits which he subject unto them are not always with them, unless the magician do compel them. In other words, this spirit teaches all arts of sciences, gives and confirms dignities, gives familiars, and that can teach arts, binds people to the subject of the magician. So that is a very far cry from a fairy that deals with protection of your character, that speaks for them, guards them, eats tasty snacks, likes tasty snacks, likes money and budgeting, and also is somehow omnipotent enough in order to stop everything whenever you enter the pause menu, except themselves, because they are the ones in charge of the pause menu. It seems like 2 very different things, at least to me. But how about I am gonna invite another person in order to give their opinion. Here comes the segment which I pre-recorded with my guest of honor, Vin, which is the person that follows King Paimon and therefore can be a bit more in depth when it comes to drawing the parallels. Or is King Paimon associated with any of the things that the fairy Paimon is associated with? How would you like to introduce yourself?
So my name, I go by a few different aliases. I go by Junipori, but I also go by Melikel and Vin, which is my most prominent one. So yeah, I'll just continue with Vin.
Yeah, I will continue calling you Vin because I know you as Vin. Vin has written quite a few things, including Meditations on King Paimon, Classical and Spiritual Ramblings on Demon King of the West, which is probably the most prominent Paimon book on the market right now. Which means that you're the best person to ask Paimon questions. If you could sum up King Paimon as a spirit, how would you do it? What is King Paimon to you?
Oh goodness. That's a lot.
Now you know how I felt.
Too indeed. To kind of condense things, I would say it is a very wise teacher who will take you under your wing. They will nurture you, but they won't necessarily cradle you unless they need to. They are very loving. There is quite a very airy, earthy aura about them, and they are entirely welcoming. Almost like somebody who's going to sit you down for tea and just have a biscuit and just have a chat.
Do you think that King Paimon in any way relates to the Fae? Is there any connection there at all?
No, not that I've ever felt. Naturally, the Fae also have their own mythologies and whatnot. They're very mischievous. They can go into the household. They can either disturb your household, they can cause a lot of chaos. But if you appease them as a spirit, then they might even help you in cleaning it. So I have not found anything relating the Fae to King Paimon in my experiences.
Do you think King Paimon in any way, shape, or form deals in protection?
Yes, he does come off like as very protective for us. He's not going to coddle you. He will expose you to the elements because if you need to grow, you need to grow. But I would say that there is the protective element where if you are kind of, working with them specifically for like a long time, you're going to feel that protective energy kind of lingering around you. But it's not so much that it will coddle you, as said.
Do you think King Paimon has anything to do with time?
Time? Yeah, there are elements where he can at least tell you about certain things that would, or like allude to things that have happened in the past or the future. He can kind of help in that regard. But a lot of it is kind of up to your own interpretation. A lot of it can be kind of like riddles and stuff like that, which is very, very fun to unravel, I have to say. But it's never kind of direct. Sometimes it's direct, I suppose, but not always.
So in Genshin Impact, there is one theory that the little chibi thing called Paimon that leads you around, that little fairy, that she could have been like one of the main goddesses of the world, like their world, that has kind of fallen from grace and gotten chibified just because of how powerful and how of a anomaly that fairy is. As such, has Paimon as a spirit ever really fallen from grace? Because we do know that some demons have like god origins. Would that be the case here or not?
I do believe that the King Paimon has origins in a pagan deity. We just cannot be sure which one. There's so many deities that, and like gods, goddesses, even entities that are also connected to like camels, the eastern regions. But to say that their power was nerfed essentially in the game, so they had to be chibified, I don't know. That just reminds me of the Fae again of the Tuatha Danann, where they became fairies and because their energy was zapped and they just went into a hill into hibernation. That's what that reminds me of. I would not connect that to King Paimon.
Oh, that's kind of cool. That means that they kind of were probably mixing two mythologies together.
That's what it comes across to me as, quite frankly. Yeah.
Do you incorporate your personal culture and descent into your practice, by the way? Because you are quite knowledgeable in these things, and you are born in the right region to be quite knowledgeable of these things.
I do have a bit of an interest kind of in like spirits and the Fae and whatnot. I have come across them in the past. I like Lady Gregory's book is quite good if you're looking into Irish mythology. And it goes through kind of like Fae and stuff, just like things that would be very particularly Irish or Celtic Isles mythology. The only thing is that I would not connect King Paimon to the Fae, like whatsoever. I would attribute like time elements to him, yes. Like a goddess of like the world, though. I'm not sure I could say that. Their own world or like their own section. Okay, how can I say this? Like their own bubble of energy that can overlap with other bubbles of energy, but are very specific to their own trade, for lack of a better term. So, for example, somebody who does metalsmithing, that's their own bubble. Somebody who does poetry, that's their own bubble, and bubbles can overlap. King Paimon is very much in like the poetry, like the arts and knowledge, wisdom kind of section of the bubble, let's say. I wouldn't say that it is specifically a entire world as you would typically put it. It is very much an energy that is in and of itself that contributes very heavily towards what we already have and know and come to learn.
You mentioned Lady Gremory's book. Is that something that you wrote, or is that something that just
Oh no,
exists?
that is something that exists already. Lady
Okay.
Gregory is a very prominent figure in Irish Celtic. Like she was a writer. She did a lot of stuff. You can find her on Wikipedia, actually.
If you could link that so that I could add that into the description, that
Absolutely.
would be great.
Yeah,
This
no problem at all.
this is a point where you can plug your stuff. I know that you're on YouTube. I don't know what you're on YouTube as, so I will need that link, and you should probably introduce your YouTube to, people on my YouTube. And
Yeah, no
also
problem.
where they can find your writings and what are the writings about.
So first of all, I guess you can find me over on YouTube. That is youtube.com/, like Venata. I do a lot of gaming stuff, but I'm very interested in mythology, kind of history of pagan deities and whatnot, kind of finding origins and stuff. It interests me very deeply. But you can find me on Venata for literature. As stated, I wrote Meditations on King Paimon under the alias of Anne O'Donoghue. So you can find that on Amazon as well as Prayers to King Paimon, as well as a bunch of stuff like daemons, summoning daemons and whatnot. There's a bunch of books there, so if you search for it, you'll definitely find me.
Alrighty, thank you so much for coming along to this video. I hope that everybody had a good time here. If you liked Vin, please go and subscribe to her channel. If you liked me, please subscribe to mine. And if you liked us both, then do both of those things. That would be great. And I hope that this video has been enlightening. Thank you for my Patreons. And I am gonna see you all in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.